as a baby, he'd be a Nazi. Take a Nazi baby, bring him up in Israel, he'd be Israeli. If he never sees anything else. Do you understand? Some guy with a long white beard once made a speech, and people followed him. They were called Jews, if they accepted that. Another guy with a small beard made a speech, and some people followed him. They were called Christians. But before that, people believed in 20 gods, 30 gods, 2 gods, 5 gods, and the gods are very different. The Jewish God says, if a man takes your son's eye out, you take his son's eye out. Revenge is sweet. The Christian Bible says, if a man strikes you, turn the other cheek. I once asked Einstein whether he believed in God, and he said, which one? He didn't believe in any of them. He wrote the foreword to the book called Man and His Gods. Have you ever heard of that book? You can have a book list. You can get it from the internet or from our website. We have a book list of books that are hardly available. I'd like to tell you a little bit about a friend of mine. Yes.
Who's the author of that book that you just mentioned?
Man and His Gods, Homer W. Smith, I believe. You're going to get a book list from the website. Okay. Those of you that have influence, if you like what the Venus Project is about, talk to your school, try to set up a session, a lecture there, okay, if you're going to school. Call up CBS, NBC, CNN. No American station had released any of this information, although it is released all over the world now. I'd like you to know. 50 million people know about the Venus Project. Not in detail, just general. A lot of them think it's a bunch of scientists telling people what to do. It's not like that at all. A lot of people think it's a regimented society. You will work in Area B, you Area C. That's what they picture. They get that from Hollywood. Hollywood made 1984, Brave New World, Atlas Shrugged, and all that's written by artists. It's nothing to do with the real world. So, what I'm about to tell you is I lived through the last Depression. Most of you, I don't think, are old enough here. I'm 93. I'll be 94 in March. So, what I observed during the last Depression is people bought houses and cars, and the banks failed. So they couldn't pay them off. Not that they didn't want to. They had no jobs. And they were sleeping in every empty lot in America. That's when ideas were discussed. Before that Depression, nobody gave a damn about anything. When they lost their jobs, their homes, then they began to look for something new. So I remember people sleeping in every empty lot, sleeping in their cars. Then another incident occurred. Like many thousands of veterans came of World War I on crutches and wheelchairs, demanding their pension. They were promised when they got out of the Army, World War I, $600 each, so they can start life anew. But the government didn't have the money, so it gave them IOUs. You can't pay your rent but that. So they marched on Washington. It should be in every school book, it's not. And they were sleeping all around the Capitol. And it didn't look good at all. Thousands of veterans on crutches, uniform. So the Pentagon, really Congress said, get them out of there, it doesn't look good. So Douglas MacArthur was a captain there. He said, will you guys kindly leave? They said, no, not until we get our pensions. Well, he had the Army throw tear gas at the veterans. You can get this in any book on World War I. The Veterans Bonus Watches, it was called. Should be in every school book. It is not. Information is managed. All broadcasting companies are full of shit. The reason is they depend on sponsors. The cigarette companies, the alcohol, beer, pays them money to do ads. So people prostitute their voices, selling toothpaste, whatever it is, that they can sell. So you live in a very basically corrupt society. Now, are there any veterans here? I'm a veteran, okay. When they conscript the lives of young men to defend this country, they're putting up their lives to defend the country. I felt that they should conscript all the war industries so no one makes a buck out of war. The Jeeps, everything manufactured, people make millions of dollars out of war, if you didn't know that. Total conscription of all the war industries for the duration, then it's real. When they tell you we're going to war to bring democracy to another country, you can't bring democracy to another country if they have an established system. They're not interested in what you've got to say. That's bullshit. That's to get you in there. And then they tell you we're trying to build women's rights, and you don't even have that here. So all this bullshit about democracy, let me tell you what democracy would really look like. Our president would get up and criticize another country, say, for an hour and a half. When he was through, we would say, is there anything else you want to add? He said, no, that sums it up. Then we would invite the prime minister or the president of that country and give him an hour and a half, giving his point of view. Then we invite the prime minister of Sweden. He says, they're both full of shit. This is how I see it. That's a democracy. On Sunday, you'll have Catholicism, Judaism, all kinds of religious beliefs on the air, and non-beliefs. Atheism, agnosticism, it's up to the American people to turn it off. That's a democracy, where all kids are given nutritious food, not junk food. And you take them to school, so they're healthy to start with. But if you're grown up by a minority family, impoverished, and the kid says, say, a black family. This isn't necessarily true of blacks. It's true of the white trash also. So, if a black kid says, Daddy, what keep the moon up there? He says, what I know about that? So, by the time you take your kid to school, he's not equal to other kids. If you can buy your kid encyclopedias so they can look it up. So bringing kids to school is not good unless you know their background. Now, if you come from a home where mother and dad fight all the time, you say, boy, I'm never getting married. Your philosophy is set very early by what you experience. And I'm trying to tell you something here. I'm trying to tell you that man, don't jump on me right away, can't think or reason. This goes for me also. I can't think or reason. And here's what I mean by that. Somebody said, well, I don't agree with that. You know, they always say things like, I don't agree with that. So I was speaking at Princeton University at the sociology department. And I wanted everybody to come, not just the sociology department. So I titled my lecture, Man Can't Think or Reason. That made everybody angry in all the departments. So they all came and they had to hold a meeting in the auditorium because it's just too many people. So one guy from the optics department got up right away and says, I want to tell you that I take issue with you. I believe man can think and reason. So I said, give me an example of man thinking. Well, the camera. There was a time when there was no camera. Somebody had to think of a box camera. So I said to him, he's not aware of this, that years ago, I don't know if any of you have ever been in a barn in the daytime. It's very dark. You know what a knot hole is? If a knot was knocked out of the wood, you'll see cows walking upside down on the wall of the barn. Not very clear. Everybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, raise your hand. Okay. If you make a hole in a dark room and the sun's out, the image of a cow walking in the field will appear upside down on the wall. If you didn't know that, ask anybody in photography.
The shadow, or?
No, the sun lights up the animal, the barn is dark, the image comes through a small hole and turns upside down. In the Holy Land, 1,000 years ago, they used to make domes out of clay and reinforce dry weeds. And if there happened to be a little hole in the wall, which there happened to be once in a while, you'd see people walking upside down on the wall.